And well, I'm just going to discuss really some of the ones we read. So the first thing that is crucial in Judaism, and it's an everyday action, is returning lost objects. The wisdom of our Jewish law. So I'm just quickly repeating this. If you see another person's animal, you shall not hide from it. You must return it to the owner. If the owner is not known to you, you've got to bring it to your own house. You've got to look after it if it's an animal. If it's a possession, you've got to look after it so you don't lose it. And so you will return it to him. So you shall do this for his donkey, his garment, or any lost article then may you find. Now that to me is an exceptionally important mitzvah. Returning lost objects is one of 613 mitzvot. Why have I chosen that? Because it's something that you and I can do any day. It can happen to us in any day of our lives. So, of course, it means if you find a bundle of money lying in the street, you're going to keep it until you find who it is or take it to a police station or something like that. But this sentence, you shall not hide it from yourself. This is of enormous significance because you can't pretend you don't see something. You can't, for example, and they've used this law as well to talk about global climate change. You can't pretend it's not there, as we know many people have, and just go on your merry way. If you've got a chance to do something to help, do it. It applies to many, many, many things. Not only a physical possession or an animal. You can't turn your eyes away from that which is wrong, because then you are sinning against your God. In fact, do you remember that funny saying that we always knew, finders, keepers, losers, weepers? That is the antithesis of our Jewish religion and law. The other application of this, believe it or not, is you can't damage someone else's property and run away and not tell them. The obvious one, forgive me, is if you dent someone else's car and there's no one there, have the courage to write your name, your telephone number, and say, sorry, let me know, and we'll get our insurance to fix it. Now, this may seem not important. You have no idea how important it is that we encourage ourselves to do these little things, because in our subconscious mind, what the Bible calls the heart, is socializing, is conditioning. No one will know, bloody will leave it. What do you want to bother for and go to all that trouble? You've got to fight against that. Why? Not to be a goody-goody, but to build an image of yourself in your mind that you will value and that will allow you to say, oh, yes, I can do that. God is good. You've got to unleash the real person that's you. Other religions, Christianity, teach original sin. We don't. We teach original goodness. If we're created in the image of God, how can that be original sin? It's original goodness. But our subconscious minds, as we grow up, as we listen to people around us, it's filled with, you can't do that. You know what? You would have had to have a millionaire father to achieve that. You would have had to have a degree. Oh, God, you're just not. Don't listen to them. Thank God for giving you the ability to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, in spite of any background, handicaps, mental or physical. That is our Jewish religion. And it refers to this. Don't turn your face away from getting rid of those thoughts in your mind that you feel are bad. Don't say them. Don't write them. Even if they come to your mind, pretend they didn't. Pretend they didn't, but don't let your mouth utter them. So that's the one thing, and I'm not going to belabor this point too much. It's pretty obvious. So bringing it home, the mitzvah to return all lost items applies not only to material objects that have been lost, but also, as I was just discussing now, to the intangibles. For instance, if someone is not talking to a friend because of an argument, or someone hasn't spoken to a family member for 10 years, and you're in a position to say, you know something, my love, it's not worth it. You still love them. They still love you. Phone them up. Say, you know something, I don't agree with you still, but you know something, I love you. And I don't want this argument to spoil our relationship. If you do that for a colleague, for a family member, for a human being you know is having an argument and it's taking years to fix, you've done a great mitzvah. That is a great mitzvah in God's eyes, because you've returned the lost object of love to that person. And I'll conclude on this particular one to say, similarly, if someone has fallen away from Judaism and lost their connection to God and Torah, we must do all we can to bring them back. Excuse me, this year, as the high holy days are round the corner, think of someone you know who may have been disconnected from the Jewish community and invite him or her to share the holiday with you and to join us on Zoom. Perhaps this is what the verse of our parasha intended when it said, bring the lost object into your house. And just one more very important one that I read to you is against hate. It's quite amazing. Do you remember I read to you, do not despise an Edomite, for he is your brother, and do not despise an Egyptian, because you were a stranger in their land. Now, who knows who an Edomite is? Any idea? Right. So, first, Jews have been subjected, and I'm going to tell you who an Edomite is and why we're not allowed to hate the Egyptian in spite of what they did to us and enslaved us. Jews have been subjected to racism more than any other nation of earth. Therefore, we should never be guilty of racism ourselves. Sorry. We believe that God created each of us regardless of color, class, creed, religion. I know you've heard this before, but that racism is still in our subconscious mind because it's been put there for generations. That is why the Jews had to be, literally that older generation had to be wiped out in the desert when it really could have taken them 4 weeks, they say, or 4 months to go to Israel. It took 40 years because it's very difficult to get those messages out of your mind. So if we are made in God's image, we have to respect other people. And I know you've heard this many, many, many times. And I'll just finish by saying, particularly we are not allowed to have any racism against any skin color that's different to ours. And of course, we've got the magnificent example of Moses marrying Zipporah, who had a darker skin, and Miriam and Aaron complaining and whispering behind their backs and denigrating them. And for that, Miriam was struck down with leprosy, and Aaron and his sons, it was too terrible. But there is a line from Song of Songs, and I'm sorry if Hilda isn't with us because I wanted to know if this is so. And it reads here that in the line of Song of Songs, it says, I am dark, but I'm beautiful. O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon, Do not stare at me because I am dark, because the sun has looked upon me.
Rita,
Yes.
I can sing that very song to you right now if you want.
Why
Very short.
don't you? If
Okay.
we, it's very short.
Okay. אל תראוני כי אני שחורת שזופת אני השמש. אל תראוני שאני שחורת שזופת אני השמש. שזופת אני כנבה. שזופת אני כנבה. שזופת אני כנבה אני, שזופת בנות ירושלים.
Thank you, Hilda. That was beautiful. Now, can you believe that the Song of Songs has the line, I am black, but I'm beautiful, O daughters of Jerusalem? How dare we, how dare anyone have racism, not only against a skin color, but against anything, another religion, another people. So I don't want to take too long, but that was very, very beautiful. So the Tanakh contains the only time, as I said, the Tanakh ever runs down another nation, it's because of their moral failure, like we discussed. It's never because of who they are. It's only those people. They don't give a damn what color the skin is or religion or anything, but how they treat other people. So the two commandments of Moses against hate, that's what I'm concluding with. Do not despise the Egyptian because you were a stranger in the land. Now, how come we can't despise them? Look what they did to us. You know what Moses says, and Hashem, you mustn't forget the good they did to you as well. Remember, when Joseph was there, they welcomed him. And for years we did live. And we were treated very, very well. We cannot forget that because of the later badness. Finish. That's it. That's what God says. You've got to forgive them because they were very good to you at one stage. It's not like the Amalekites who were continuously bad. So that's very, very important for us to remember. And the greatest hate crime of all in the entire world against humanity was the Shoah. And yet today, Germany has stood on its head with its wonderful chancellor, I don't know if she's still a chancellor, to make reparations and defend Israel and help Jews. Now, we're just going to discuss the other one. Why must we not despise the Edomite? Because he is your brother. Edomite is the other name for Esau. How many of you remember Jacob and Esau? And Jacob and Esau vowed to kill Jacob. Do you remember? Rebecca received the oracle that there were two sons in her womb, that the younger would be over the elder, and they would hate each other, but they would both become great nations. And the elder would serve the younger. Now, so why shouldn't we still hate Esau, Edomite? They became the Edomite nation. I don't know what happened to them, who wanted to kill his brother. It is a halachic law. And now, what is an halachic law? Here is a beautiful explanation I found. It's an inescapable truth. An inescapable truth. Esau hates Jacob. Why then does Moses tell us not to despise Esau's descendants? Esau might hate Jacob, but that does not follow that Jacob must hate Esau. If someone hates you, why hate them back? You become them. You live with a hatred inside you, which is the worst existence in this world. Very interesting. And, I can just give you so many examples here of different rabbis and different people who've turned away from hatred. I remember one wonderful Palestinian doctor who had to flee Palestine. His daughter was killed by Israeli fire. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant. And he had to leave Palestine because he said he refused to wrought vengeance and hate the Israelis back. Hating them would not bring his daughter back. And I think he went, I've got to find him again. I was in touch with him. I think he went to live in Australia, and he started a campaign of fighting all forms of hatred. And of course, he became part of that circle of parents, both Palestinian and Israel, whose children had been killed by the other's army or people. So it's a very, very, very important thing. And then there is a Rabbi, Shimon Bar Yochai, who said at a later stage that when Esau met Jacob for the last time, guess what happened? He kissed and embraced him with a full heart. His subconscious mind had got rid of that hatred. He'd forgiven his brother. He'd forgiven himself. Especially between family, hatred cannot be eternal. We've got to fight against it. And therefore, the greatest leadership of Moses was because he, like other great leaders, and remember, it is our duty to respect great leaders who were not Jewish, who represented the same dimension. Great leaders like Moses made people better, made people kinder than they would otherwise have been. I've got here Washington, Lincoln, Churchill, Gandhi, and Mandela. These are the people like Moses who had the most lasting influence on history. In fact, they say that Moses, because of presenting our Torah as he did and all these laws, was the greatest leader in history. And others remembered him. So I'm going to conclude now, if I may, with words of the wonderful late Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory, who is a mentor that I do my best to walk in his path. And this is what he said: hate the sin, but not the sinner. Do not forget the past, but don't be held captive by it. Be willing to fight your enemies, but never allow your enemies to define who you are or become like them. Learn to love and forgive. Learn to give up vengeance and hatred, even if it's a mild one against a family member or a colleague. Because when you do that and you see the goodness in them, you feel better, you become greater. Acknowledge the evil men do, but stay focused at the good that is in our power to do. Only then can we raise the moral sights of humanity and help redeem the world we share. And with those beautiful words, I wish you Shabbat Shalom.